Hi, thank you for joining me again. I hope you watched the last episode because in this episode, we'll be continuing the conversation about what to ask a land seller for when you're buying land. Very important things to know. I'm Solomon Wangwe, and you're watching Own Land in Kenya. So you've asked for all the first 6 documents that I mentioned you should ask for, 7 rather, the last one being a certified copy of your mutation form. The next thing you will absolutely need to ask the land seller for, if you're buying from a company, is the Land Control Board consent letter. So the consent letter will either give the land seller permission to transfer the property to you or sell the property to you, or subdivide it, or register a lien or a bank charge to it. Whatever it is, you need a Land Control Board consent letter. They need to give you the original. And the reason that's important is because it needs to have been a regular board sitting consent letter and not a special board consent letter. I have given information in the past in previous episodes. You can look those up about the difference between the regular or the normal board sitting and the special Land Control Board sitting. It's very important that they obtain you a consent letter giving them permission to sell you the land if you're dealing with agricultural land, that is. If you're dealing with leasehold land, typically in urban areas, you don't need a Land Control Board sitting. You simply get the consent letter from the Ministry of Lands. In Nairobi, for example, you get that from Ardhi House. But either way, you need the consent letter to transfer that property to yourself. Don't forget that. The next thing you'll need to ask them for is a board resolution from the company agreeing to sell that particular property to you as a buyer. So the board resolution will simply say that certain members of the directorship of the company had a sitting or a meeting where they agreed to sell a specific property, and the board resolution needs to reference the title number. It has to be very detailed, and it needs to reference your name specifically. The reason this is important is because if they followed due process and went to the Land Control Board to get permission, they would have been required to provide this board resolution to them in order to get the consent letter, which is why you should ask them for it. If they're an organized entity, they will have several copies of those and they can issue you an original one. It's an important one so that you don't have disputes later about a particular director claiming that the other directors have sold the property without their knowledge or their consent and they want it back. It can be very messy. So make sure they give you a copy of the board resolution giving the company permission to sell you specifically that specific plot of land, referencing the title number. And finally, the last thing you'll need to ask them for is what we call clearance certificates. And these are especially important if you're buying land in urban areas like Nairobi. If it's an area where you're paying land rates and rents annually to the municipality or the Ministry of Lands, as you will do in Nairobi and its surrounding areas, places like Thika, Athi River in Mavoko, Ngong, and so on, commercial properties and such, you will need clearance certificates in order for the Ministry of Lands to successfully transfer that property to you. If they have not been paying their rents and rates, you could get stuck with a bill if you do not make sure that they clear their obligation to the municipality. You need to make sure that the land seller has paid all their taxes before they sell you the land. Otherwise, you'll be stuck with a bill, and it's not something you want to do because some of these can be quite hefty, especially if you're dealing with property in urban areas. So remember finally that you will ask them for a Land Control Board consent letter. You'll ask for board resolutions giving the company authority to sell you the land, and then finally clearance certificates for any back taxes to the property. I hope that information helps and that you're better armed to deal with your own land transactions. Interrogate your land seller, whether it's Goshen Acquisitions or someone else, In the next future episodes, the next few episodes, I'll share with you information about how to deal with an individual. If you're buying from an individual, what documents do you need to ask them for? If you have any questions, send us an email. All our social media platforms are up and running as well. We're happy to engage with you. You've been watching Own Land in Kenya. I'm Solomon Wangwe. Stay tuned for more information on strategic land investment.